Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So here we are. This is going to be video 3 regarding the 1951 Dodge M37 military truck. Last video on this one, I ended it basically letting you know that I had another issue with the fuel line fitting stripping out in the float bowl. So I am back home. Parts have been ordered and it's going to be time to go ahead and repair the threads. I'm going to use a helicoil kit, rethread it, and then I should be able to get everything put back together and go ahead and take this back down to the museum and get this thing up and running, hopefully. So that being said, I'm going to get the camera turned around and get to work. So here we are, carburetor back on the workbench, and then here is the fitting I was talking about. Basically, this screws in here, and it has that needle valve sitting inside of it on the other side, and that's what the float pushes on to open and close the fuel inlet, where it goes in there. And what happened is this was in here and it was tightened into the carburetor from when I rebuilt it, and then the fuel line comes in at this angle. It's got a flare nut on it. You tighten that into this. Even though I had a wrench on this and a wrench on the flare nut, this turned just ever so slightly, and it was enough to pull out what was left of the pot metal threads. So as you can see, no more tightening. Threads are gone. So yeah, sadly, it was just pouring fuel out the side. None was going into the bowl. So obviously had to stop there and bring it home and fix it. So what I'm going to have to do is pull the top off again. That gasket should be okay because it never got any fuel or anything on it. There's no sealers or anything that were used. So that should be reusable, hopefully. And then, once the helicoil kit comes in, I can go ahead and get this thread repaired. I'm also looking into, for this needle valve, this is the spring type. You can see here it's like a multi-piece. There's a spring and then the plunger that moves. These make it much more difficult to set the float height properly, which can cause some issues as far as enough fuel in the bowl. You can have too much fuel and then you'll have overflow, or you can have too little fuel and cause you bogging if you're like going up a hill or whatnot. There is a NAPA part number that I found online that people recommend, and it's solid, and then it has a viton tip, so it seals better and it makes it a lot easier because the float measurement is 5/64. So it's a very accurate number you're shooting for as far as setting the float height. I walked through that a little bit in my prior video, but it's still, with that spring-loaded thing there, it's kind of a guess. Other thing I'm going to look into swapping out is the rebuild kit came with a paper gasket for where that fitting mounts to here. I'm going to see if I can find a copper one that's the right size. I should. It looks pretty standard. So that is what is going to be on the to-do list. All right, easy enough. All the screws taken out, and I also removed float assembly, which you can see there, as well as the needle and everything that goes here, and then the spring and ball that are in there. That way I can flip it over to adjust the float when the time comes, and I don't have to worry about losing any parts. There's nothing else in here that's loose. Also, the accelerator pump is sitting there. But yeah, gasket came off no problem. That's all intact and everything, so that will be reusable. I also had previously pulled out the plug here. This is a drain plug for the bowl. You can see the hole right there, because I wanted to see when we were there if we were getting any gas into the car, because it wouldn't start. That was the first kind of sign that something was wrong, as well as fuel coming down the side here, but it wouldn't start at all. I wanted to see if at least any fuel was getting in the bowl, and no, it was bone dry. So yeah, next on the list is going to be repairing this thread. As far as this fitting goes that I need to repair, I did go through all of my taps and dies I had laying around just to figure out what this was, because you would think it would be probably like a pipe thread, something like that. It would kind of make sense, but this is not a pipe thread. This is a 7/16-20. It's a very old die, so bear with me. This is something I inherited from a grandfather, but it works actually quite well. But yeah, I was able to screw this into it very easily, got nice and tight and whatnot. So this is definitely the right thread. So I have ordered a 7/16-20 kit, and then I can go ahead and drill and install new threads in there to replace those ones that are all wore out. Well, good news today, the kit has shown up. I got this off Amazon, so it's a nice little thread repair kit, and it comes with everything you'll need. It's got the instructions, drill bit, tap that you'll need, installer tool, the tool to pop the little end off, and then all the threaded inserts. Now I am probably going to have to cut an insert down because if you look in there, it's hard to tell, but that's not very deep, whereas those are pretty deep inserts. So that's probably what I'm gonna have to do is like, I'll do the drilling, the tapping and everything, install one of these to where I think it needs to be, then back it out a little bit and use like some fret cutters or something to cut it and then run it back through. And hopefully that will be what I need to do to make this work. I do have a 7/16 20 tap that I can also, once that insert's in, just run that down a little bit if I need to just try and clean up any edges that may be rough when I cut it. But that is what I'm likely gonna have to do just based on the space I have to work with. First part done, ran down with a drill bit, you know, the one that comes with the kit right there. Got that all cleaned out. You can see I did put a piece of towel in there to catch any fragments, keep it from going down any holes or anything like that. So next will be to run the tap down. As you hopefully can see, I went ahead, I ran the tap down that the kit came with, and then cleaned everything out really good with some carb cleaner, so there should be no residue or anything in the bowl. So next is going to be to use one of the actual inserts. What I'm probably going to do actually in advance is just cut this down, probably about half the height. That should be what I need as far as the thickness of this goes. I just don't want to risk like getting it and not being able to back it out any because of the way it's designed and that it's going to be going into an open space there. This is probably going to spring out and start getting caught up. So yeah, I'm just going to cut it down to about half the height. I'll basically count the threads that are in there and then just kind of count the same threads in this, and that should be good enough. And here's what I'm going to be installing after using fret cutters. Basically, I just kind of pulled it because it is a spring. Basically, you can pull a little bit at a time and just very carefully go coil by coil by coil to get it down to the height you want. I wanted basically 5 full coils based on what I could count in there as far as threads go. So I'm going to go ahead, get this put on the assembly tool, and install it into the carburetor. And you can see the coil is installed, and if you notice, it is recessed a bit just based on the way this fitting is designed. It does have a portion with no thread. So I wanted to make sure it was recessed and that wasn't going to cause an issue. And you can see how it sits on the inside after I popped out the little tang that you pop off using the tool that it comes with. So all set there. So now I can go ahead and put this fitting back in. I did look through my set of O-rings and gaskets and metal washers and things like that for sealing, and I found one that is actually the right size in comparison to the paper gasket that it came with. So I'm going to use this to go ahead and install this fitting in the football. And all set. 9/16 wrench and got it nice and tight, so good to go there. Looks like it's going to hold up just fine for years to come. Next on the list will be the float assembly. Been a few days since the last clip, and I got my package in the mail from NAPA. So just to start, here is the part number of what I ordered, and here's what you get. You're going to get a new gasket, new fitting, and this is the whole reason I ordered it, is the new float needle. Instead of having the spring-loaded plunger like the one that I previously had, this is solid, and then it has a viton seal on the tip. Much easier to set the float height when you have a solid needle versus the spring-loaded plunger that I was previously working with here, because you have this variable with that spring, and this is just a solid brass tip instead of being the viton seal that the new one has. So what I'm going to do, make sure that this fits in this fitting, because while this appears to be 7/16 20, I'm not 100% sure that the inner is the same. It looks like it might be a little different, but I am 40 minutes away from the museum where the truck is with the fuel line, and I know that fits because I screwed the fuel line into it. That I don't know, and I don't want to risk it. What I am going to do, though, is since this came with a new paper seal, and seems to be what they want you to use anyway, I'm going to pull this one back off and remove this metal one I put in there, because I don't know if this is previously used or not. It was in a thing I had, but I don't know if I've ever used it. And again, 40 minutes away, don't want to risk it. So I'm just gonna go back to the new paper seal. I just didn't want to reuse the one that I'd already installed, and it got saturated with fuel and it's got marks in it from being installed previously. So I'm gonna pitch this one, pull that off, install that seal, and get to setting the float height. And reinstalled with the new paper gasket, and then you can see the needle is in place and no more springiness. So I'm gonna get the float installed with the clip, and then it'll be time to set the height. Again, it's supposed to be 5/64 from the top is what you set the float bowl height at. So I'm gonna grab a measuring device that goes down that fine of a measurement and get it all set up. Just a reminder, make sure you remove this the spring and ball from here so there's nothing that falls out when you flip this upside down and are messing around with setting the float height. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that taken care of. And there's the float assembly back in place. Got everything set. Wasn't too bad, just a lot of little fine back and forth using duckbill pliers on the tab. Just bend it here, check it, bend it, check it, bend it, check it. But got the 5/64. Make sure when you put it in the retainer clip, it's hard to see, but there's kind of a groove that it needs to sit down past, like the flat open that you can see from above, and it will sit down flush on the pivot pin for the float. So just make sure you get that seated all the way down so the float doesn't move around too much. So yeah, I'm at the point now where I can go ahead, reinstall accelerator pump, the main valving there, and then also put the drain plug back in here. And then get the gasket put back in place and cinch the top back down, and we'll be ready to take this to the museum for installation on the truck. And there we have it, all reassembled again. Everything's tightened up. So I'm gonna get this thing packed up and head down to the museum this Saturday and see about getting installed and hopefully have a running truck. More to come once that is done. And real quick, here is what things looked like before I started doing the installation. Back home, after getting everything reinstalled in the truck, I have a little clip of me sitting in the driver's seat revving it a few times while it was running. I didn't take too much video as the museum was actually hosting a collector's meet, so there was a bunch of people in the hangar that were buying and selling world or multiple war memorabilia, things like that. So that was going on, and I couldn't run it or mess with it too much because unfortunately the wind was blowing the exhaust fumes into the hangar, and I did not want to asphyxiate everybody that was in there doing their stuff. So I got it running. It was pretty rough at first. As it warmed up, definitely got better. It was still breaking up ever so slightly on initial tip in, but I think that's more ignition related than fuel related. It definitely seems like it's getting fuel now, and that is no longer an issue. So as I said, here is a quick clip of it running with a few little revs of the engine. Well, here I am back at home, and I'm actually redoing this ending as I do post my videos, a week or two behind from when things actually happen, like most YouTubers. After posting video number 2 on the rebuild of this carburetor, somebody reached out to me saying, hey, not your fault, but it looks like a few parts were in wrong places when you started taking it apart and rebuilding it. Being that there were really no videos out there about this ETW1 carburetor and very little information out there. I basically, when I disassembled it, tracked where everything was and, put everything back where I found it. As it turns out, it looks like on the accelerator pump circuit, the jet and plug were in the wrong spots. They were reversed, and there were a couple of discharge check balls that were in wrong spots. So again, I'm ending this one here. There is going to be a video 4, which will be me going back to the museum because it's about 40 minutes away from my house. I'll be heading there this coming weekend and going back and making the corrections to the carburetor, and that will hopefully be the end of this rebuild. So I'll try and note everything, video everything, show you what all is being changed. So That being said, if you enjoyed this video, if you want to follow along, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I do review them. I will reply. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.